In the opening scene, we see a police officer approach a woman standing outside her car, informing her about a parking violation. The atmosphere is thick with tension, and it's evident that this isn't going to be a straightforward exchange. As the officer explains the situation, the woman interrupts him, claiming that it's unfair. This reaction highlights a common psychological response when individuals feel confronted by authority. Studies show that about 70% of people react defensively when faced with an authority figure. This fight-or-flight response kicks in, leading to a confrontational stance rather than a cooperative one. It's almost comical to think about how her anger is a defense mechanism, akin to a child throwing a tantrum to avoid responsibility. The officer, meanwhile, remains calm, trying to explain that she is the one blocking others, not the other way around. The woman's insistence on her perspective introduces a fascinating dynamic. She believes she's being wronged, which is a common feeling when individuals feel cornered. However, her refusal to listen to the officer's explanation only exacerbates the situation. This highlights a crucial point about human interactions: effective communication requires both parties to engage constructively. Unfortunately, the officer's attempts to maintain professionalism are met with resistance. As tensions rise, it's interesting to consider how her claim of being blocked in reflects a broader issue of perspective. It's easy for people to get entrenched in their viewpoints, often losing sight of the bigger picture. In this case, the officer is simply doing his job, enforcing parking regulations that exist for the benefit of the community. A little empathy could go a long way, yet she is determined to argue her point. Moreover, her body language, standing close to the officer and speaking aggressively, only serves to heighten the tension. In many cultures, personal space is crucial for comfort. Invading that space can trigger defensive reactions. Research shows that such invasions often lead to escalated conflicts. If she had taken a step back and engaged calmly, the interaction might have ended differently. Humorously, one might imagine the officer thinking, "If I had $1 for every time someone claimed unfairness over a parking ticket, I could retire." This situation serves as a reminder of how ridiculous some confrontations can be when viewed from a distance. As the scene concludes, it becomes evident that both parties are stuck in their own narratives. The officer is trying to enforce the law, while the woman feels victimized by it. This illustrates a fundamental lesson about the importance of communication and empathy. When faced with authority, staying calm and listening can often lead to a better outcome than a heated argument. In the second scene, the officer attempts to clarify the situation, but the woman's frustration grows, and she steps closer to him. This escalation is a pivotal moment, as it showcases how quickly an interaction can go from mundane to confrontational. The officer is now faced with a challenge: maintaining his professionalism while dealing with an increasingly agitated individual. As the officer tries to communicate effectively, the woman's body language becomes more aggressive. She's not just arguing, she's challenging his authority. This is a classic example of how defensiveness can manifest in confrontational situations. Research shows that people often feel compelled to assert themselves when faced with authority, which can lead to conflict. Her insistence that the situation is unfair becomes almost absurd. It's like watching a child demand justice for not getting their favorite toy. Humorously, one can picture the officer thinking, "I'm not the one who parked illegally." Her behavior illustrates how people sometimes get so wrapped up in their emotions that they lose sight of the reality of the situation. Moreover, her claims about being blocked add complexity to the dialogue. While she feels wronged, the officer maintains that she is the one causing the obstruction. This difference in perspective is a perfect illustration of how communication can break down. If only she could step back and view the situation from his point of view. Instead, she's stuck in her narrative, unwilling to acknowledge the facts. As tensions escalate, we see the officer's patience tested. He's trained in de-escalation techniques, but even the most seasoned officers can struggle when faced with aggression. The importance of nonverbal communication becomes clear. Her invading his personal space only serves to heighten the conflict. Personal space varies by culture, but in the US, it typically ranges around 3 feet. Crossing that boundary can trigger defensive responses, which is exactly what happens here. The officer's attempts to disengage serve as a vital strategy. He's aware that escalating tensions can lead to unpredictable outcomes. Yet, the woman's refusal to let go of her grievances creates a cycle of confrontation. It's a classic example of how stubbornness can turn a simple situation into a significant conflict. In this scene, we're reminded of the importance of listening and recognizing when to de-escalate. As the officer maintains his composure, we see a stark contrast between his professionalism and her emotional turmoil. Ultimately, this interaction serves as a microcosm of broader societal issues regarding authority, respect, and communication. As we reach the climax of this encounter, the tension peaks dramatically. The officer, now visibly frustrated, attempts to assert his authority while the woman's agitation spirals out of control. This scene is pivotal, illustrating how quickly a situation can escalate from a minor parking violation to a confrontation that could lead to arrest. The officer's decision to ask her to keep her hands to herself underscores the precarious nature of authority. In this moment, he's not just enforcing the law, he's trying to ensure the safety of both parties involved. When she continues to invade his personal space and demands his name, we see her desperation for control manifesting in increasingly aggressive behavior. It's almost comical in its absurdity. It feels like a game of who's the boss, gone wrong. In terms of education, this moment serves as a critical lesson about compliance and authority. Research indicates that many confrontations escalate simply due to a lack of cooperation from one party. Here, the officer has made several attempts to disengage and explain the situation, but the woman's refusal to listen creates a volatile environment. Her repetitive questioning about the officer's name becomes a focal point of the confrontation. It's not just about obtaining information, it's about asserting her identity in a situation where she feels powerless. In psychological terms, this can be seen as a form of resistance. The humor in this scenario lies in the irony of her situation. While she's trying to gain power, she's actually losing control by escalating the confrontation. As the officer tries to maintain his composure, we see the tension reaching a breaking point. His repeated warnings about her behavior serve as a last-ditch effort to avoid a physical altercation. This moment highlights the challenges faced by law enforcement. Every interaction carries the potential for escalation, and officers must constantly navigate the fine line between authority and de-escalation. When the officer ultimately decides to put her on the ground, it's a clear indication that he feels there's no other option. This decision isn't made lightly, it's a reflection of the escalating situation and the necessity for control. It serves as a reminder of the consequences of defiance. When individuals refuse to comply with lawful requests, they risk escalating their situation into something far more serious. In closing this scene, we reflect on the broader implications of authority, compliance, and communication. This encounter serves as a cautionary tale about the importance of remaining calm and recognizing when to cooperate. In the end, a little understanding and respect could have transformed this confrontation into a much more amicable resolution, reminding us all of the delicate balance in interactions with authority figures. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more engaging content like this, don't forget to hit that like button. Your support helps us bring you more amazing stories and insights. Subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Join our growing community where we dive deep into fascinating stories and keep you informed. Drop a comment below with your thoughts or share your experiences. We love hearing from you. Thanks again, and see you in the next video.